No.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Two for Talking podcast. I'm your host, Corey Tusick. I've got comedian Joe Bartnick alongside. You can catch him this weekend at Sadman's in Boca Raton on August 8th and 9th, and then Sea Legs in Huntington Beach on August 15th, and then up at the Boston Comedy Studio at the end of the month. You can check out joebartnick.com for all his dates. And then also, as always, Josh Yowie from The Athletic. And you guys know the intro by now. We have Mario Lemieux scoring the goal. And I think that the guy we have as our guest today could have called that goal. Maybe we should have done that and have had you recreate it. Mr. Joe Brand, radio play-by-play voice of the Penguins. Welcome, Joe.
Wow.
Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for the rousing applause. Everyone, lower your standards right now, please. No, I think that call was just fine on its own. I don't think we need me mucking it all up, but I appreciate the idea.
Our fans have very low standards, Joe, so it's okay. You'll fit right in.
They listen to us, so I mean, it can't be that bad. It can't be that bad. So Joe, we could get into all the Penguins stuff. We'll definitely touch on your thoughts on what's going on with the Penguins, but take us back to your journey with hockey. When did you become a hockey fan? How long have you been into hockey? And you're not a native son of Pittsburgh, but we're making you one. So where did it all start for you?
Yeah, no. Well, first of all, guys, thank you for having me. Thrilled to be on. Love listening to you guys, and it's just always such a casual thing to just pop it on when I see it at the top of Twitter when I'm mindlessly scrolling, and it finally gives me a productive thing to do while I'm on my phone. So yeah, thrilled to be here. But my journey is one that I would not have thought would have brought me here, but I'm really glad it has, and it has done that. I grew up in Chicago, first 34 years of my life in Chicago or the Chicagoland area. I had never been to Pittsburgh until the interview for this job. My wife had not been here until we made the move. So it's been a crash course of Pittsburgh over the last, not even year. It'll be a year in September, so it's coming up. But I've really embraced it. I've really enjoyed it. I've really loved it. The people have been great. I'm in a couple of volleyball leagues this summer. I did a baseball league this summer. I'm trying to, stay as connected with the community as I can with no hockey right now. But I always wanted to do broadcasting because I love sports and I was never a good athlete. Full disclosure, I never played hockey, not a breath of my life. I still cannot really skate. I hope I don't lose any points from anyone for that, but I just want to, make that clear and get that out in the open. I grew up a big baseball fan. That's kind of my first love and what I first started watching and obsessing over. And then the Hawks got back on TV and then they got good. So my dad and I started watching the Chicago Blackhawks on a game by game basis. And I mean, their dynasty, very similar to the one that the Penguins went on. And in high school and college, it was appointment television. We're not missing any games. We wouldn't go out until after the Hawks game was over. I went to 2 out of 3 parades and fell in love with the game that way because growing up a baseball fan in Chicago is a tough life. Not too many things to be excited about until, kind of recently. I've now seen a world championship on each side of town, but growing up as a kid, it was tough. So this hockey was kind of my escape to actually enjoy a good fan base, a good team, and a competitive one. And it really just got me obsessed with the game and the rules. And then all of a sudden I get to watch all these new broadcasters and kind of learn from them because that's what I always gravitated towards when I would watch games, like how the broadcasters work every single game, and they operate differently, they work differently, they're kind of in your living room, but they're also working for the team. I was just always in love with that aspect of a production of live sports, and now I get to actually live it. And such a passionate fan base with the Penguins, it's a dream come true, really.
Joe, I just want to welcome you, it's a year later to Pittsburgh. I told you personally, I think you do a fantastic job. I listen to the radio a lot. You had big shoes to fill between the Hall of Famer and then Josh Getzloff, who I think does an incredible job. You're seamless, just an incredible job. I love listening to you. You have a beautiful flow, and that's what matters in radio. I also want to say Chicago is just a really, really big Pittsburgh. As I always say, it's one of my absolute favorite towns to go to. You know, I've played the Chicago Theater a bunch in Zanies and the Den. I shot my at the Den. You know, Big Al's. I mean, I get 3. I literally do. It's the best. But I just think welcome, and it's just so it's so great to have you. And it's I think it's fun that now, like, you know, so you kind of understand what a kind of dynasty is and what we're used to. You know, like, I mean, you had Kane and Taves and just, you know, Hossa, and, you know, it's kind of what we have here. I mean, even though we're kind of dying, you know, it's going away, but you just
dying on the vine.
Greatness.
No, for sure. And it's honestly, I mean, just on a personal standpoint, it's kind of cool because it feels like an extension of what I got to experience as a fan in Chicago. And, you know, the Hawks moved on from Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves in both very different ways, but still, and now ironically, they're both back, and that's going to be very interesting to see Taves and Kane both playing again. But yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, you know, growing up and watching the Hawks win all these cups, I always compared Taves and Crosby and Kane and Malkin, just like their identities with the team. But then you get here and you realize what kind of impact Sidney Crosby has, and I almost feel like it was blasphemous to compare him so much. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's Captain Serious, he's the best captain in Chicago Blackhawks history, but Sidney Crosby is just something different. He's just such a unicorn, and to be able to just have a small presence in towards the end of his career is something I never even could have dreamed of. It's really, I'm really lucky. It's pretty cool.
Joe, I have a very simple, basic question to start with for you. I've asked this question to Mike Lang, to Staggy, Josh Getzoff, Steve Mears, you name it. I've asked them all, and I'm going to ask you because there's something I don't understand about your job. And I've been around hockey a long time. I've known broadcasters a long time. My question is this: 82 games a year. How the hell do you memorize the names and numbers of the other team like every other day? I don't understand it because I'm paid to cover the team in the league, and I watch them. Who the hell is that with the puck? Who's that with the puck? And I hear you guys do it so seamlessly. Do you have any secrets?
I don't have any secrets, and I truly think you're making so much more of a deal of it than it really is. Like, to me, it's just muscle memory. You know, like I have way more respect for the things you guys have to do because I don't know. To me, it's like I'm not putting much thought into it. The more you do it, it just turns into repetition, and you just get kind of good at it, and then you let it fly, and you don't focus too much on every single little detail. And it's almost kind of fun when there's a new player that comes in, because now in my first year, you know, that was the beginning of the season. I had to learn every player's name. And I will say that was a little tough seeing, you know, the San Jose Sharks for the first time in a while, and
Right.
not knowing half the team. But then you see him a second time, and all of a sudden it's just like clockwork. And you start to remember how guys look when they skate without the puck. Some venues are better than others, right? You're closer to the ice. Pittsburgh, Washington, Edmonton, they're a little
Not
further
so good.
back. Yes. So the video board helps out a lot. I get a lot of assists from the video board. And then you just pick on things where, okay, if the puck's dumped in the corner and someone's going after it, you don't say their name until you know exactly who it is. So there's little tricks of the trade of it. And, you know, I've done basketball, I've done football. Most of my background is in baseball, where 9 guys on the field, one at a time. It's almost the easiest part to know who's up at the plate. But hockey, it's like basketball on drugs, because it doesn't matter what the numbers are. Guys are changing on the fly. There's just so much more rapid movement. But it's fun. You know, once you nail that part of the job, which is kind of the nuts and bolts of it, then it gets a little bit more intricate, and you start to incorporate your own style a little bit more, and you start to pick up from other broadcasters and what they do, and you work in your own little stories. And so it's fun. Yeah, I don't have a direct answer to it, but it's kind of the job. Like, you got to do it. If you mess up someone's name, you're not doing your job, you know?
this is a real nuts and bolts question, and I've never asked anybody this, to be honest with you, but you're such a casual, cool guy. I'm as blind as a bat. My girlfriend today tried to put my glasses, look, and she's like, oh my God. But I've watched so much hockey in my life. One of my only skills is on TiVo 3-speed. I can still call out secondary assists. So I just kind of watch the flow and just know. So I understand how you can call. I know where the puck is at, but I'm shocked. Do you have 20/20 vision on shots, like where they go? Like, oh, that was stick safe. Oh, high, low, stick safe, low. Like, just the pinpoint accuracy to which you guys describe shots. Are you kind of guessing, or do you really see the puck? I mean, honestly, like, it's shocking to me sometimes how you guys can see where it's going on the goaltender.
I wouldn't say I guess, but I definitely don't. I never lie. If something goes wide, I saw it go wide. There were a handful of times where, he shot it wide, and Bourque's like, no, he got it on the knob of his stick. Like his precision, his 20/20 vision, I think is beyond me. But I also think playing the game and doing the job for so long, you pick up on things like that. I do feel like I got better at it as the year went along, but if I don't directly see exactly what happened with the puck or the save or the shot, I'll generalize. I don't try to make it harder on myself than it has to be. And I think at the end of the day, the listener wants to visualize it. My philosophy is, if someone's tuned into the game, like you said yourself, you listen a lot on the radio. I assume the listener is visualizing the game as if they're watching the game on TV. I know some other people. One of my mentors, John Weidman with the Blackhawks, he has talked about it before, that he goes in with the philosophy that you're trying to visualize the listener as they're playing the game. But I never played the game. I always just watched it. So that's kind of what I go off of. And not one way is right, not one way is wrong. But that's just what I stick to. That's why I say the far corner, the far boards, the far circle, not the left side, just because that's kind of the way I tick when I call the game. So yeah, if I know exactly what's up, I'll say it. If I don't, I generalize, just because you can't get caught up on hockey. Like, the more you screw up and try to fix it, the slower you're going to be, the more you're going to be stuck in the mud. I learned that really quick. You make a mistake, you move on. It does not matter. You got to keep people in tune with where the puck is at the moment.
The best part is we can't see it when you make a mistake.
Exactly. Right.
Like, yeah, like it is 100%.
I think there's a story really quick that Ronald
for it.
Reagan, like when he was in college or something, he did minor league, or he did baseball games on the radio, and would like make up that a brawl just happened or something. So I can't get away with that, but clearly people at bigger statures have done that.
Yeah. How does it, whenever you do hockey compared to baseball, like, because I mean, I think you've done a little bit of minor league baseball, right?
Yeah, no, I did 10 years of minor league baseball back in Illinois. That was.
You really earned your stripes then.
Well, that's the whole thing. Everyone talks about riding the buses and everything, and I did that. I just did it with a different sport, and those are long seasons, 140 games in 152 days. So it's
what's the difference between the games? Because I don't know if you know this, but Mike Lang actually grew up in San Francisco and was a huge baseball fan. And he once told me that he actually would walk around and listen to the radio. I forget the broadcaster that he listened to out there in San Francisco, but that is, I think initially is like Angle, and then he ended up with, I forget, somewhere down Southwest, and became a
Tucson,
hockey broadcaster. Right? Yeah.
I think he was in Phoenix. He was calling the Roadrunner games.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the guy who does the Suns games forever, he recently passed as well. But
Al McCoy.
He got the Great Balls of Fire. That's who he got it from. Because I lived in Arizona, unfortunately, for a year, so I remember Al McCoy.
Well,
he worked in. Mr. Lang was in Sacramento, and I think he got something like $3 to, and like all the beer he could drink to, I think, call hockey games in Sacramento, which, I mean, even today is hard to do, let alone whatever 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the difference between baseball and hockey? Like that's kind of a big gear change, isn't it? Because hockey, you can hear it, and I'll give you a compliment. I can hear it in your voice, like as the play, as you're anticipating the play and feeling it, like that comes through. So what's the difference that you noticed, that you had to do yourself coming from baseball into hockey?
Well, I appreciate you saying that because that's my favorite thing that good broadcasters do. I grew up listening to Jeff Joniak, who's the radio voice of the Bears, and I always say you could be speaking Spanish and you understand that the Bears are an important drive right now because of the tenacity of his voice just kind of elevating and getting more excited. Um, the difference between calling a baseball game and calling a hockey game is pretty much everything. I mean, from the cadence of the game to working in stories to dealing with, I should say, working with your partner. I mean, I'll never forget when I first started trying hockey and I spent all this time doing prep work on all these background stories and all these players and their pets' names and cool tidbits about where they grew up and everything. And I had no time for any of it. It was just not necessary whatsoever because that's what I was used to doing. I used to have at least three notes on every batter of a game coming up because I would see them at least three times. And that was just for the first game. Series are 3 games long. So the way I prep is different for hockey than for baseball. But that's honestly what I love about it. And I love about the industry, how different they are. And again, doing a lot of basketball in college and in high school, I think that helped connect to the speed of hockey, but it's still just on a whole nother level. And now I feel like I'm getting the point calling hockey on the radio where, kind of like what Joe was saying earlier, being precise on every little single thing that you can. But now I'm also listening back to how I call games and okay, is this necessary? Does this help the listener visualize what's going on? And is it the most important thing? Like baseball, you can use a passive tense. Deep fly ball, back goes Jones in center field. He makes the catch. Like in hockey, you have to be, oh, here, loose puck at center ice. Here comes Jones. It's better to just say Jones has the puck because by the time you are finished saying Jones might be shooting the puck on his breakaway. If I say Jones has the puck, I'm kind of already bringing the listener into it right away, and it helps me stay active and it stays on top of the play so that I can't fall behind. And I'm not perfect at it, no one is, but the more consistent I can get with it, I think the better on top of the game I stay.
Joe, we've mentioned Mike Lang a couple of times already, and he, as you know, is even after his passing remains a larger than life topic and figure among Penguins fans. I guess in Chicago, I'm guessing only Harry Carey's popularity is something that would rival compared to what Mike was in Pittsburgh. And it's got to be hard for the people who follow Mike Lang, whether it be yourself or Josh or Steve Mears before. Is it a good thing or a bad thing when you have that kind of looming presence of, and there's a lot of fans like, oh, we miss Mike. We like the way Mike did it. Does it ever infiltrate your mind, or is it a good thing that this is such of a sports town that even broadcasters are a huge deal?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess verdict's still out, right? Only a year in, we'll see how everyone responds. But no, I mean, the feedback so far has been great. I mean, I have seen some. What was one of my favorite comments? This dude sucks. Let's just get AI Mike Lang at this point.
Wow, that's pretty funny. Actually,
yeah, I know, it's great. But I mean, come on, like that's sports. That's the internet these days. Like it's just part of it. So that's why I embrace it. And honestly, I was that way too. As a fan. So I don't know. I mean, it's great. I mean, I'll say this first and foremost, like the radio following here in Pittsburgh, for hockey is huge and passionate and intimate, and that's because of Mike Lang. Like somebody recognized my voice the first month on the job this past year, and I know that's not because of me. Like that's because people grew up listening to hockey on the radio and they keep doing it. But they first started doing that because Mike Lang taught the game to their parents or grandparents or maybe even great grandparents, and they just continue on that tradition. So in that essence, I totally feel like I'm riding the Mike Lang wave. I'm benefiting from that for his whole impact here. And you're right, Harry Carey is someone that I have thought of the similarities before because, they were never bigger, or they never thought they were bigger than the game, but they often were.
Yeah.
And people throw out their catchphrases so casually and at family parties when it has nothing to do with sports. So that's pretty cool. I mean, I'm constantly feeling the presence that he created and instilled in the fan base. And I mean, obviously, you get reminded in so many ways sitting in his chair and seeing the night owl on the back hanging on top of all the radio equipment. So it's just very cool. It's very humbling. But I'm never going to be Mike Lang, and I know people who have stepped into big shoes like that, like Joe Davis is not Vin Scully, and Joe Davis is freaking fantastic. And fans love him because he's himself and he's very, very good, but also because he's himself. So I can't try to like be Mike Lang because that's just not fair to anyone. And I just would strike out completely because there's only one Mike Lang. And there's just no point to be a Mike Lang cover band at this point because people, especially Penguins fans, they would sniff it out immediately. So
Right.
I just feel like trying to be your authentic self is the best method moving forward.
I mean, you're doing a fantastic job, Joe. I
You are.
really enjoy your calls, and you sit next to one of our all-time favorite people, a guy when he used to do the post games. I'd be walking my dogs, and if after a bad loss, I'd want to run through a brick wall for. Can you just feel the intensity of the old 2-9er sitting next to you? I mean, how much fun is that on a nightly basis? Working with Mr. Bourque.
I don't know how to describe it because he really is everything you want in a partner. And falling in love with this industry to do this job, you don't think about, oh, I hope I get a generational partner. You're like, this is already a generational job. This is a generational opportunity. Oh, and by the way, you got one of the best color analysts sitting to your side. Like I could go on and on with everything he brings. But the other thing is he is just so much himself. And that's why fans love him. It makes my job so much easier because he's going to say what's on his mind. He's going to say what he thinks about in the game, on the team. He's going to be fair, but he's going to be real. And I don't have to do any of that. And people don't want to hear my opinion on the Penguins. This is my first year, like people have been around here a long time. They don't want to hear my assessment of what's going on. They want to hear his. And I just had that luxury to let him go and do his thing. And I've just really appreciated the flow with him. That's the other thing. He's done this job for so long. It's not just he was a player that was, one of those identity players on a really good team or teams. And he was also a great guy and great with the media. He's also very experienced in this job. So it's not like we're both learning the semantics of the job on the fly. Like everything he brings is my benefit. And on top of it all, he's such an easy guy to get along with. He's such a fun, easy guy to spend an entire winter with. He doesn't judge anything that I ask, which is huge for me because I feel like I have so much to learn and I'm behind the eight ball on so many things. And this guy's been in the NHL for, around the NHL or in the NHL for almost the amount of time that I've been alive. So it is the best resource I could possibly have. And like, I didn't even know how valuable that was until the season started. So I really could go on and on, but it's such a benefit to have him next to me in the booth.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that Bourque is himself on the air because I can't tell people how many times I like to drift into the radio booth during intermissions. I like to pick Phil's mind because guys who played in the league, they just see stuff we don't see. It's just the way it is. And Phil said, I don't know what the hell Carlson was doing. I can't believe that. 5 minutes later, you turn on the broadcast, and Phil says, I don't know what the hell Carlson was doing. I can't believe that. like he's not acting. Like it's just him, and I think that comes through on the air, and I think Penguins fans are bright enough to pick up on that, no question. And you two have real chemistry. There's no doubt about that, Joe. You guys are the radio team, and Phil occasionally does TV. You always do radio. I ask guys this all the time, and I get different answers. Do you want to do TV someday? There's more TV. There's more money in TV. Everyone knows that. But radio is a different kind of art. Do you have a preference?
I don't have a preference. In a perfect world, I would love, somewhere down the road to be able to do both.
Mhm.
But that's selfish and that's almost far-fetched, but some people do it. So that's why it creates the possibility or the thought of it at least. Um, sure. I mean, yes, I love the challenge of TV. I've done a good amount of it, but not a ton. Most of my background is radio, and it's funny because when I went to college, I worked at the radio station, I worked at the TV station, but I wanted to call games, and you could only do that on radio. And even just, when I went to college 10 years ago, that was how you got your reps on the radio. That's how you got your first entry level job on the radio. Now everything is streamed. Now there's so many opportunities for people to get into the business and just call it on TV, but they're two totally different entities. And that's why I like both, because they're two totally different arts. But I do enjoy TV. I also love radio. I don't know. You don't get to be too picky in this industry also. So I just kind of am counting my blessings right now, being lucky enough to be the radio voice of the Pittsburgh Penguins. I did one TV game this past year, filling in for Josh when he got sick.
San Jose.
Um,
Right.
yeah. And I mean, to pull back the curtain, I wasn't in love with that game because I I was so conscious about it being a television broadcast more than a radio broadcast. And they say on TV you're kind of the traffic cop. You're working in your color commentator a little bit more. You're hearing from the engineer, producer about the graphics that you're using. It's a lot more complex of a job than people think. When you do radio, you're just kind of in control. You press play or you press on air and you go, and you kind of lead everything with your own flow. But that's why TV is such a different challenge. And I will say, as beneficial as it is to have Borky, I feel like my whole crew, I'm just fortunately lucky. Like Josh is a mentor of mine, and he's just such a great example of how to do the job, how to present yourself each and every day, how to ask questions, how to like talk to the right people. And he's such a smart, sharp guy. Like I'm very lucky to just be able to kind of study him and study the way he works. Again, like I would have taken any one of these gigs, but oh hey, this is the Pittsburgh Penguins and Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin and a stoic franchise. Oh, and you also got a great partner. Oh, and also the entire crew you're working with is great. And it might sound like I'm blowing smoke, but it just truly is the truth. Because I've seen how other operations are run, and there's pros and cons everywhere, but just everything that is going so well here on the production side is very cool and very fun to be a part of. Um, but a long-winded answer, sure. Like I would love to do TV, but I would also love to do both. Like I said, my first sport that I fell in love with was baseball, but man, the hockey schedule is very, very nice.
Really
You know,
is.
yeah, I mean, I'm coming from baseball where, 3 days off in a row is called the All-Star break. There's a few of those during the hockey schedule. So again, I'm not complaining about the spot I'm in right now or the schedule that I'm presented with. So I don't know. The industry, the business is so tough and so unpredictable. You try to map out everything, but I didn't know I was going to be living in Pittsburgh a year ago. So I'm done trying to map it out. I'm just having fun with the opportunities I'm given right now and just trying to roll with it. So that's kind of where my mindset's at with that.
How do you prep, Joe? Do you do a big board? And do you keep them from game to game? And what is your process?
Yeah.
Pull the curtain, and people wonder.
I've actually tweeted out my charts before a few games, and it's kind of fun because at first I was a little hesitant to do it because I thought people would like chew it up. But people are just inquisitive about it, and then they throw me more stats or more notes, which is amazing because it almost feels like I'm cheating. Um, but I've workshopped a couple of different charts. I got one from actually my partner with the Kane County Cougars, the minor league team I worked for so long, Connor Klingon. who I think he got his charts from Tony Simeone, who does Notre Dame hockey. So I mean, that's the whole thing. It's all shared. And now when I tweeted out those charts, I've had young broadcasters reach out to me, hey, can you send it? And I've sent it to them. I've seen them use it for, junior hockey, high school hockey. It's pretty cool. But it's always a work in progress. I try not to go too stat heavy just because you have the stats available to you. So I try to, the main thing I've been trying to do now lately is just consolidate my work. If I write something down and I don't use it, then I not use it because it wasn't relevant, or was there just not time for it? So that's what's helped in my first year, getting to do it 82 times, because you get to learn how to prep a little bit better. And well, the thing I always say is when you prep for a game, when you're calling a game, no matter what game, it's almost like taking an open book test, and you get a cheat sheet, or an open book test, right? If when I was in school and they told me it was an open book test, I'm like, great, I don't need to study. I'll just bring the book. It'll be good. Meanwhile, I'm on the second question, flipping through every single page, and everyone else is finishing before me, because you still study, but you use the book or a cheat sheet as a reference. That's the best way to call a game. If all the information is in your head, you can get to it quicker, you can access it, and you can also kind of generalize the notes, the factoids, and then you look at your sheet to get a little bit deeper on the information. And that's where it plays into working with a partner. Like, Borky is talking about Dustin Wolf's lanky size, and how that's affected his positioning in the crease. And as he's talking about that, I'm listening, but I got a stat on that. Oh, he's the second tallest goaltender in the NHL right now. Don't fact check me on this. I don't know if that's true. I'm just trying to make a good story. But it's basically along those lines, and then that helps create a better flow of the broadcast. That helps. I it's easy for play-by-play guys to just be like, that's a great point, Borky. Yes, absolutely. And it's like, even Borky doesn't want that. Borky doesn't want us just saying, yeah, oh, good job, pal, every single time. So that way I kind of validate what he says, but add on to it. And also that kind of activates my next thing that I go into. Oh yeah, second tallest goaltender in the NHL, already 32 saves tonight. He had 40 last game. It's just, it helps create a better flow, and I think it's just always easier on the ear, and it's easier for people to follow along and stay captivated with the game that way.
That was kind of getting to like see the process there, even just like how you made that flow there. So it was enjoyable. And I want to ask you about the interview with the Penguins and all that, but we should mention Mr. Bill Neofus. If you need, Joe, you're new to the area, so if you need a local insurance agent, this is the guy to go to, isn't it, Josh?
Bill Neofus is indeed the king of Pittsburgh insurance. That's neofusinsurance.com, our great sponsor. Whatever the insurance needs that you may have. Joe, I don't know, whatever insurance needs you have. You need homeowners insurance, you need rental insurance, car insurance, whatever. Our guy will take care of you. He will do it with a smile. He's a big fan of yours, by the way, Joe, and a big Penguins fan. He enjoyed SummerSlam this weekend. Bill's a cultured man. You can talk wrestling, you can talk hockey, whatever you want to talk with him. Talk insurance for that matter. So at neofusinsurance.com, look him up. Bill and his whole staff, they're just the nicest people in the world. They're located very conveniently in the North Hills of Pittsburgh and Wexford. So give our friend Bill a call. Look him up on the internet. Do what you got to do. So Bill Neofus, he is the best. He will take care of you.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill. And so, Joe, you mentioned how it wasn't until September last year that you knew you were coming to Pittsburgh. What was the interview process like? Because I think a lot of people assume that you just send in a resume on, LinkedIn nowadays or whatever. You send in some tapes and say, this is what I got. But it's not just, oh, I heard that guy, I want him. I'm sure that's a little bit more involved in that.
Yeah, no, there is. We did do a practice game. And I've heard of other teams do this before. And frankly, it was probably my favorite part, because I knew I could prepare for it. I knew I could get ready for it. It was something that, I could plan for. Any interview, you're just hoping to pass the personality test, right? You're trying to schmooze with everyone. And just trying to win everyone's, I don't want to say affection, but, validation. But they said that, there would be a mock broadcast part of it. So that was an experience, but one I've felt that I could actually prepare for. And I've heard people do this in the past where they won't pre-watch the game that they're about to broadcast because they want to make it authentic and they want to make it natural. So that's what I did. But the kicker was when it was a game between the Penguins and the Red Wings. And I said, okay, I'm going to watch every game between the Penguins and the Red Wings leading up to that game. So I could, just have better familiarity of the players and kind of what's happened in the season series, and it could feel a little more natural that way. So that's what I did. But while I was watching, studying, preparing, I saw the final score of the game I was going to do the mock broadcast for. So I'm like, shoot, I know it was the end of the game. So I know how many goals are scored in the period. I know who wins. I'm like, man, that kind of takes away from, but whatever. It happened. It happened. I can't, erase that. So I go into the mock broadcast. I'm waiting for the Red Wings to score. And I'm like, every time the Wings have the puck, I'm like ready to, all right, here's the overtime winner by Detroit. And all of a sudden, Erik Karlsson scores and the Penguins win. And so I'm like genuinely surprised, reactive, excited. And all I keep thinking of is there some rule that they're testing me on that they're going to overturn this goal? And like, this is part of it. Like there was something somewhere and I need to know this hardcore rule. And then it just goes black. And Borky's like, yeah, good job, man. Sounded good. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, that's it? They really won? He's like, yeah, they won the game. I was there. And I'm just like, okay, like, I misread the score. I saw, I think it was 6-5 Penguins. I thought it said 6-5 Detroit. I probably also was like scrolling and I'm like, oh, no, I see it, turn away. But I don't know, maybe that worked in my favor. Maybe it didn't. I'm assuming it might have. But it was also cool because it felt like a more general reaction, a natural thing. So yeah, that was quite the experience, but it was a fun one.
Joe, when you got into the business, were you blown away by how much work there was that maybe people don't see? Like I'd be at a game, a couple of hours before puck drop, and I would see Mike Lang with sheet after sheet after sheet. And he told me one time 95% of the stuff he writes down never makes it into the broadcast. But just in case this guy who scored a goal in the last 3 Tuesdays that he's played on, or the last 3 afternoon, whatever, in case that happens, he has to be prepared. When I was a kid, I thought Mike Lang just showed up and picked up a microphone and was Mike Lang for 3 hours. It's not like that at all, is it? Did you know that beforehand? Was it a learning curve for you to see, man, these guys put in a lot of work?
Well, first and foremost, I mean, that shows you how good Mike Lang was, right? Like he probably could have done that, showed up to the game and just put on a microphone and bent himself for 3 hours and everyone would have still listened. Yes and no, because when you do the minors and, like when I was fresh out of college, I was doing everything that I could to get opportunities. And then meanwhile, I'm doing other jobs just to make money. And then finally, it got to a point where I was calling more games than doing odd jobs. So I felt like, okay, I'm doing the right thing. I'm going in the right direction. And then when you get to this level, all the info is just there. It's available. You don't have to call the high school coach to figure out a little note. Because that's how I was kind of splitting up my time, working minor league baseball. I'm pulling tarp. I'm writing the lineups on the boards. I'm writing the game notes for the fans to print out, even though it's mainly for me. And then I've got fans saying, "Oh, why you missed that he put down a sacrifice bunt last week? How could you miss that?" And it's like, yeah, I don't have a million other things to worry about right now. But that's the thing. And now it's to the point where just call the best damn game that you can. And it's almost like, okay, all that hard work that I did before, you still have to do it, but now it's just zoned in on one aspect and one avenue. And that's the luxury of these jobs, because that's the most important thing about your responsibility. And that's honestly what's most fun for me now, because now it's just like I'm studying every day. And it's always I'm always going to feel like I could have done more. I could have researched more, but you just got to learn that there's only so many hours in the day. There's only so much prep you can do. You're not going to use a lot of things, but it helps because you never know when that factoid is going to play a role 2 years from now when you play that player or team, or when you just talk to the player before the game. Like, hey, I saw this note. Like, did you know this? Or do you remember this? Yeah. And actually, we actually got Chinese food with the guy's brother the day before it happened, and then all of a sudden it turns into that kind of story too. So, yes and no. And again, when you get to this level, that's what makes it more fun because that's the main thing you focus on. That's the main thing you prep for, and then it all kind of comes into play when it's showtime, when it's game time, and it's just the best thing in the world.
Joe, you said you paid your dues, you've ridden the buses. What's the wackiest thing you've called? Like, have you done cornhole? Have you done badminton? Is there something you've done that's just like, I can't believe I was at the, world, whatever competition, ping pong, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I've called baseball, basketball, football, swimming, soccer, volleyball, wrestling. And so probably the most obscure sport is swimming. Wrestling was tough too. I'll never forget the guy's like, "Hey, can you do a wrestling meet?" I'm like, "I've never done that. When do you need an answer by?" He's like, "If you don't say yes, I'm going to call someone right now." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I can do it. I can do it." So then you just study up on it quick. So not too many obscure sports, but a lot of weird stuff happens in minor league baseball. I've had a bee delay. I've had a skunk delay, a possum delay, a firearm delay,
Wow.
a sprinkler delay, smoke delay. So yeah, I mean, it's just random things that happen. One time the manager was suspended for arguing a call and getting a little too in the face of the umpire, and so he's sitting up in the stands, and we're playing in Clinton, Iowa, probably 40 people in the ballpark, and seventh inning, roller hit to short, hits a pebble and goes right through our shortstop's legs, and they call it an error. And our manager walks up to my booth. I have the crowd mic pinned along the window, and he opens up the window so the microphone just goes. It falls down, and he goes, "That ball hit the lip." And I'm like, I'm on the air. I'm not the official score. I can't do anything right now. So I'm like pointing to the official score over there, and it's just like that kind of stuff happens. I had a shirtless guy with a beer in hand asking me if I had rosters, and I'm like in the middle of the third inning. Like a lot of weird stuff happens. But it's fun, that's part of it all, and you never forget those moments, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. I learned so much all those years in the minors. You learn life skills, you learn how to deal with people, but also you learn how to deal with coaches and players. And it's kind of nice at that level because, players still have mood swings and coaches have mood swings, and you just kind of learn how to tolerate it and still stay on people's good side. And, you learn a lot of life lessons that way. So it's, again, it wasn't the hockey minor leagues, but it was still beneficial and helped me kind of cut my teeth.
Well, with the Pirates, we know a lot about minor league baseball in Pittsburgh. You don't have to comment. You don't have to comment on that.
I've gone to 6 games, I think, in the last month, so I'm enjoying Pirates
you
baseball.
like baseball,
No
wow.
doubt.
Yeah.
Well, they can't beat the stadium, right?
Yeah, oh God, no. I just had a bunch of family in, and when the Sox were in last weekend, I took my brother-in-law to 2 games, and we were sitting in right field upper deck, and beautiful scene, obviously the skyline. I'm like, in 10 minutes, let's move 6 sections over. And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "I'm comfortable right now. This is beautiful." I'm like, "Let's just do it." And we did, and it was golden hour and the sun setting on the skyline. And he's like, "Wow, okay, now I know what you were talking about." So yeah, I've been showing off PNC Park a lot to friends and family that have come to visit.
What's the one thing, I'm sure there's a million things you like, or at least a couple of things, hopefully. What's one thing you really enjoy about Pittsburgh? Be it a restaurant or a place you like to go? What's one thing you're like, wow, this is cool?
I mean, I know it's general, but I start with the people because the people really are great, and I'm making friends fast, and I'm making a social, circle fast. Like I said, I've joined a couple of sports leagues just to stay active, but it's been great. I've like created friends that way. The food scene here has been great, and I will say I was a little worried about it coming from Chicago, but we're living in Lawrenceville, and there's still a few restaurants we haven't checked out, and I feel like we go on a walk every day for a new coffee shop, new restaurant, new bar. I mean, shout out to Walters. Pusidi's Garden's fantastic. Umami's great. Brooklyn Bagel is wonderful. We tried our first wings the other week at William Penn Tavern. Yeah, I don't know. The list goes on and on. It's been great. And trying to think of something other than
As a
that.
Yinzer already, Jesus. I'm
You're
impressed.
getting about as yin, PNC Park and all that food. I mean, you're as yins as it can be.
I will say I missed the.
He just has to publicly denounce the Flyers. Then he's a
Yeah, right. I haven't bought my Madden shirt yet, but maybe it's on back order. But I will say, man, do I miss the grid system? It is tough to get around here. I'll never forget like knowing what side of the river I lived on, being on that side of the river downtown. I'm like, all right, just a straight shot this way. It's like, nope, you go over the river to get back over the river. I'll never understand it. I put my GPS in no matter where I'm going, even if it's to the arena, even if it's to the practice facility, just in case I make a wrong turn, because it can take you 40 minutes out of your way. That's been tough, but I feel like it's made me better for it.
Yeah. We're talking about PNC Park, and one of the listeners actually asked, what was your favorite away venue to call a game so far?
Ooh. Yeah, see, I don't want to throw too many out because there's different reasons why. I mean, it's tough to not feel a little extra something calling a game at Madison Square Garden. There's just not. But like Utah was a hidden gem. What a wonderful venue, a cool town. The perch for the broadcast booth was amazing. You're on the 100 level. I really like Detroit. There's like no flaws with everything how Detroit operates with getting in the food, the meal, the spread before the game.
Didn't
The
used to be
vantage
that way
point.
at Joe Louis Arena, by the way.
I
but
know,
it's
right?
good at the new place.
But that's almost one of my favorite spots to call a game because you're so up high, but you're hovering the ice. So yeah, I don't know. It's tough to nail just one. I love going to Seattle, so I really like that, even though you're a little bit off to the side when calling a game there. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's tough to nail just one. And also like going to places like Montreal and Toronto for the first time in my life and never knowing what those places would be like, and then just falling in love instantly. That's been cool too. So yeah, I mean, the job has so many benefits. It's really remarkable, all the things you get to experience in a short winter season.
Well, one of the benefits is covering the Pittsburgh Penguins, and Sid and Gino, drop dead Hall of Famers. What's the one thing that you didn't know about Sid that you found out, or that kind of blew you away? Or I don't know how to phrase the question. Josh can probably phrase it better than me. I'm just a comedian. But what's one thing that kind of shocked you about Sid that you didn't expect?
I'll say what someone in the front office told me one of the first days on the job was everything you've heard about Sid is probably an understatement. And that's exactly what it was. Going into this job, okay, Hall of Famer, one of the best captains ever, one of the best players ever. Like, wow, how cool. And then you get to meet him and he just says not just the right thing at all times, but the perfect thing at all times. And he just knows how to make an impact on almost every interaction that he has. Just how genuine of a person he is and how he just wants to be normal, but he's just so above everyone else, but he never acts that way. It truly is remarkable. And again, like I don't think I would have known that or at least understood it if I had not come here and I had not gotten the accessibility that I get to have him on all the players, on almost daily basis. But yeah, it's just there's always a little extra something with him. And oh, by the way, he still has a remarkable year too. It's not like we're hopefully Sidney scores today. Like no, another 4-point game for Sidney Crosby. It's unreal. It really is.
Joe, your hometown Blackhawks have been mired in a rebuild that has taken a little bit longer, I think, to get going in the other direction than the locals there would like. And I know a lot of people in Pittsburgh are fearful that something like that could happen here. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on this team? Because as currently constructed, we don't know if it's still going to look like it looks, of course, come October 7th. Like, right, still 2 months, a lot can happen. I feel like they might have too much talent right now to be a bottom 5 team in the league, even though they might give up a bunch of goals. But I'm just curious what your thoughts are on this team, and what's it like for a broadcaster if it is a bad team? How does that change your job?
Yeah, anyone can feel free to start blaming me. Every hockey team I touch now is going in a different direction. Um, but it's interesting the way it's gone because yes, like I said earlier, the Hawks moved on from Taves and Kane. They declared a rebuild. They declared we're going to scorch the earth, start from scratch, and build our way back up. And the Hawks aren't the first team to do that. They're not the first hockey team to do that. I do think it's not the right recipe for every team, but I also think that sometimes it's the best case scenario or the best next move for teams. I think with the Penguins situation, they have an opportunity to go in a different direction, but not completely scorch the earth. And this is the thing. I don't want to use the Hawks as an example of it not working because I still think they've got so many good players in the system and they're still drafting a lot of players. Like I just have a lot of faith in some of the guys that only played in their first year in the NHL last season. They still have a big step to take, but I feel like they can. But with the Penguins situation, it's not the easiest thing to move on from Sidney Crosby, and I understand why people and the organization and Crosby himself don't want to do that. So this puts Kyle Dubas in a much more unique situation to change things in a way that a hockey team really hasn't, right? I mean, back in the day, you would kind of work around the staple players that you had, try to build around them, and then just try to get to the playoffs, try to get to the playoffs. Now it's all about building a sustainable product to be in the playoffs back to back to back years to create a best chance of winning. And, Kyle Dubas has declared that, but there's something to be said about having a winner like Crosby on the roster. And with that, I think there's something to be said about having a guy like Malkin and Letang to show these guys the way and how stale losing can be and how detrimental it can be on players at a very early stage of their career. I think on the flip side of that, the benefit of having a stone cold winner just kind of instills a little bit more in you. Rucker McGroarty's first goal was this dramatic equalizer. I get it. The Penguins weren't making the playoffs at the time, probably. They're in St. Louis, not a powerhouse of a team, but they were on a 10-game winning streak at that moment. And Ville Koivunen and Rucker McGroarty are playing with Sid, Raquel, Rust in this huge moment of the game, and they excel. They he scores, they capitalize, they were successful in the moment. That's got to do wonders for the kid's confidence and hopefully his career moving forward. So I think those types of moments are just these intangibles that fans don't think about, fans don't see, and just how much more valuable it is to have these types of players on your team. Then you get into players like Rust and Raquel. I get it. It's a much more difficult situation and a much more difficult decision because those guys provide so much as well, but they're also probably going to generate the most profitable return. So it's a tough spot for Kyle Dubas, but I also think that this is something he kind of wants to relish in and something he really wants to succeed in. And he's got full autonomy to do whatever he wants. And I think I think any GM would be salivating at this opportunity. So, I mean, we've all known that this is where Kyle Dubas is going to either, live or die with his lore with the Penguins, but he's got a great opportunity to show what he's made of. And I think he is being bold with some of the things he's done. And, this is just an opportunity for him to kind of push this next chapter of the Penguins.
Now, speaking of GM salivating, do you think Kyle Dubas is salivating over Gavin McKenna? Because like Josh said, too much talent to be a bottom 5 team. And some would say that that's the wise decision. What do you think's gonna play out here?
It's just so tough because of the lottery, right? I mean, I had when I was doing Blackhawks pre and post, I had fans pissed off that the coach was making the players work too hard towards the end of the year because they needed to have the best odds for Connor Bedard. And it worked out, right? I don't need to bring up what happened towards the end of that year to Penguins fans. They know very well. Um, but again, it's like there's so much more to it than just the hard nose of, well, do all that you can to suck so that you can hopefully land this generational player. Like it's just not that cut and dry. And this is what I learned covering the Blackhawks those years. Players do not care where the organization wants to go in terms of if they want to go towards a rebuild. They're going to work their asses off. They're going to do everything that they can to win games. And if that's the way a team decides to go, you're going to piss off fan bases that want to see losses more than wins. And I know that's, such a foreign concept to Pittsburgh Penguins fans and just Pittsburgh sports fans in general. So yeah, it's just I think you kind of go about the year as you plan to do it. I don't think they're going to try to pivot that hard just because it's not a for sure thing, and it never is and it never will be. That's the whole point of the lottery. And I mean, that's what you have to look at. That's the pros and cons that's probably going on in the room right now. If we were to sell off big players like Raquel and Rust in hopes to find ourselves in the bottom of the standings and you don't get it, what type of damage does that do? What type of damage does that do to these young players that they're investing a lot of time, effort, and money on right now? How does that affect their careers? So it's a tricky business, but that's why it's the NHL.
Have you had any contact with Dan Muse? Because in Chicago you saw a guy who turned a franchise around, an absolute legend, Hall of Famer, leave, and the team changed. I mean, Sully absolutely turned our franchise around in 2016, and now he's gone. Have you met Dan? What do you think of Dan, or what do you think is going to change this year under a new?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I think the main thing to keep an eye on is how much responsibility is he giving young kids over some of the veterans on the team. Um, like guys like Kevin Hayes and Nola Chari. Are they going to be getting responsibilities even in the middle of the year, if not later in the year, compared to some of the youngsters that this organization is putting a lot more emphasis on. And I think Dan Muse might be the guy that leans towards the latter because he's got a vision, he's got a plan for this whole organization moving forward. I haven't talked to him much. I talked to him a few times. I interviewed him in front of the staff, one of our meetings, and he was great, very personable. I really liked what he had to say in his press conference, just about, well, number one, I can't tell you everything we're going to change and everything we're going to fix right away, but guys with his resume, his pedigree of working at so many different levels with so many different players, you have to have all these one-on-one relationships, and you have to figure out different ways that guys click. And I feel like he's got a ton of experience doing that. So I think that's beneficial for the younger kids in the organization because they're looking for long withstanding relationships. And it's just, what did Kyle Dubas say when it had been announced that he and Sully were parting ways? Was that sometimes the teacher needs a new class, sometimes the class needs a new teacher. Like Sully's going to do absolutely everything he can to win every single game, and you can't knock him for that. He's a winner. He's a Hall of Famer. He's multiple Stanley Cup champion. So you can't just break that from him. You can't just pull that from him because your envision of where you want the team to be or expect the team to be going in a couple of years is kind of altered. So I think the priorities change a little bit with Dan Muse, and that's why I feel it just makes sense they went with this type of hire. And I'm excited to see it because, again, of the relations he's had to build over the years with his different roles, I think can hopefully come to fruition now with this spot with the Penguins at this moment.
Joe, I got a two-part question for you. Have you had any late nights with Staggy since coming to Pittsburgh? And if so, were you able to keep up with him?
No late nights.
Smart man.
Yeah. It's but it's funny because on the home games he does the post game show, so I feel like I have a few late nights with Staggy, but I'm in the car on my way home and he's breaking down the game. Yeah, just want to add him to the mix too about this whole. I kind of call it a support system, right? With
Yeah.
Bourque, with Josh, with Colby, and even working those games with Michelle has been great. But Staggy has done the job.
Staggy
And
loves you, by the way. From day one, Staggy called me and said, "This Joe Brand guy's unbelievable." And that's good though. You got Staggy on your side. That's a big deal.
It is. I feel like it could go one or two ways, but yes, no, you're absolutely right. But that's the thing. Like I get to pick his brain, like someone who's done the job, not only done the job, but done the job in this role and in this town, and is just like a great resource. Like I could tell you right now, I don't think there's any other broadcaster in any major sport right now that has that luxury to shop some things. Like the first week Staggy came back with me at something. What he said, he's like, "Oh, you're saying knives wrong." He's like, when you say he knives it in, you're saying knives, like multiple knives, but knife is a verb. You gotta say it like knives, because it's a plural. And I'm like, Staggy, you're probably the only person that noticed that, but thank you. Like, you're absolutely right. That is definitely something to like nitpick and fine tune. And I'm like, keep giving me that. Like, please don't ever feel like I don't want to hear it or anything. Like, just give me that every day. Text me. Maybe I don't answer, but whatever. So yeah, no, that's been great. And what was the two-part? Can I keep up? Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and say no. I haven't
Hi,
danced
kid.
with the devil yet.
We're a pro Paul Steigerwald podcast. We had Staggy on last week. In fact, he set the
I know,
table for you.
and I kind of wish he went after me because there's no way I could keep up with all the stories he was just swinging left and right. I feel like he saved the worst for last, but I appreciate you still having me
That's
on.
not true, but he was an A+ for him last week. There's no doubt about that.
Well, Joe, just meet us in the Lexus room and take an Uber home.
It's not a bad idea. I'd have to take an Uber there though, then too, right? So
Yeah. Either that or you got to do the drive of shame with your wife the next morning.
that'd be great.
I slept in
Nothing worse than
one
asking
tea,
your wife.
honey, sorry.
Yeah. Can you drive me to the place I left my car because I was being scared? Like, aren't you proud of me?
Yeah. Don't you work there? Yeah, but they're cool.
Oh man. Well, Joe, you had before we let you go, you walked right in to a couple of big milestones that you had to call. And I know I asked you about it on Twitter whenever you came on the post-game Twitter Spaces. What was that like sitting there going like, okay, let me look at the stats. Oh, Evgeny Malkin needs 3 goals for 500. I guess I'm going to be calling that. And all of a sudden, I mean, I have to tell, I told you that story then, but I had run down to get my son a drink of water. He was holding the phone, listening to it, my youngest, listening to the game. And I come back and I hear it and he just lights up and he's like, he did it. And I was like, oh, like, man, Joe really nailed that call. I was thinking more about your call than Gino scoring, but what was that like?
Yeah, that was crazy. And that's cool to hear. Thanks for sharing that story. Because those are the moments you think about, being a sports fan, always absorbing this aspect of just sports in general, and that it's cool to hear it on this end. Yeah, because like the way I have approached things that I've been like afraid of or self-conscious about are totally different now than at the beginning of the year, right? Like I'm just trying not to break anything at first, and I'm trying to keep everyone satisfied with still listening to the game and everything. So once I got past that, it turned into a whole different kind of anxiety that we don't have to get into. But knowing that those big moments were so close, it kind of helped me stay at the ready right off the hop. Um, just because you kind of knew that something big was going to happen. And I've said this a million times. I never try to script things, but I always have something ready. But I never want to be married to it. It was honestly something I heard Joe Buck say once when I was in college. He was calling the McGuire home run chase. Mark McGuire's coming up on 62 homers, and he did not have a call ready. And everyone keeps coming up to him like, "Oh, you know what you're gonna say? Like, this is a big home run. You know what you're gonna say when it happens?" He's like, "No, like I haven't done it all year. Why would I do that? Like this is a big home run." So all of a sudden, people are in his head. I have to have something ready. And I don't know if you guys know, but Mark McGuire's 62nd home run was the shortest home run of that season by him,
Yep.
and it was like just tucked within the left field foul pole. It was just fair. So he's saying that he's leaning over the booth, making sure that this is a fair ball because he can't go into his home run call if it's a foul ball. He'll get roasted. So if like you go back and listen down the line, is it enough? Gone. And then Mark McGuire misses first base as he rounds first base. He goes back to touch it. And Joe Buck goes, touch first base, Mark. You are now the new single season home run king. And like single season, that was something he had written down. So he let the moment happen first, and then he went into his thing. So I've always kind of followed that because I think it respects the game. It respects the moment. It allows you to be prepared, but it doesn't keep you handcuffed to it. And Evgeny Malkin scores his 500th goal while falling down onto the ice. And, the call I made is actually one I used in baseball a lot. A lot of times, third baseman, shortstops, they'll make a diving play and from the seat of their pants, they'll throw it across the diamond. And that's what I said because I'm so used to saying that. And everyone's like, oh, like that where'd you come up with that? I was like, I've just been using that for forever. And then I don't think I can remember it exactly, but from the seat of his pants, Evgeny Malkin joins the 500 club. Like that's the thing. I never really said he scores. I mean, if you really break it down, like that could be something I could have added. That might have, tweaked it a little bit more. But the more you do this job, you kind of just realize what happens, and you got to live with it. And I will say, like, I don't love my Crosby 600th goal call. I don't. I think I was a little too nervous about it, and the game was a little rough. And it was just such a sure thing he was going to score because it was a 5-on-3. So like if I could have that one back, I would. But the Malkin call, I was more of a fan of, and that happened, weeks before the Crosby one. So it's just a funky business, and those things happen, and that's what makes the job so great. And like there's going to be more milestones coming up. I'll feel more prepared for them now because of those things happening. But I will say it just kind of helped me breathe a little bit easier because I was so nervous about that Malkin 500 call. I was like, I gotta nail it, and then it happened. Felt good about it. Reception seemed pretty good. And I was like, okay, like I'm not an idiot for trying to do this anymore. So that was a cool like validation moment with the job.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't think anybody could blame you about that Sid one because I don't even think Sid was happy with how that went down. That was a brutal one.
I will say you'll never see it, but there's a picture of Crosby holding up his.
I've seen it.
Oh man,
there's I was in the locker room, Joe. They made Sid like hold the puck with 600. The look on his face, like I've never seen Sid more unhappy in a photo, and the Penguins decided not to ever publish that photo.
I don't think it'll ever see the light of day. No. I mean, it's but again, that's just him. That's like to what we were talking about earlier. That's just him. He did not care. But then that's the other crazy thing. Didn't the Penguins go on a run right after that? Didn't they win like 8 of 9 after that happened? Yeah. So, I mean, again, back to what I was saying earlier about there's some intangible. At this point, it's not even intangible, though. It's totally apparent. Having Sidney Crosby on your roster with a bunch of young kids makes a difference. And having those types of players, those types of leadership makes a difference. So, I would not question it at all if those types of players were still on the roster moving forward, for a longer amount of time than we think.
Yeah.
Your lips to God's ears. I've been saying.
Yeah, exactly. Can there be like one more question so I don't end on that?
I mean,
we have for dinner tonight.
I'm just a Latino guy and I am a Rusty guy. And I've used the Blackhawks as an example for the last, I think, since day one of this show, that when you get rid of everybody, there's no one to look around, no one to go see, and you just, no, that's not the way I would do it. And you confirm my thoughts. I just thank you again for coming on. I won't ask you any more questions.
Yeah, this was great, Joe. Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
No, hey
Yeah.
guys, I appreciate you having me. Thanks for the flexibility too, and my technical difficulties. You guys are a very patient bunch. But no, I mean I've hosted many podcasts. I've been a part of many podcasts. I know how important these things are. So you guys are doing great work. I love listening to you guys. And yeah, anytime at all. Please let me know when I can help out.
Door is always open, Joe. Thank you so
Always
much.
open. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Ladies
Joe.
and gentlemen, the Joe Brand, the voice of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Thank you always for listening. You can check out the show on all the streaming platforms on YouTube. Please like and subscribe it, and we will talk to you next week.